Jonsbo is not a name that comes up very often when talking about computer cases or coolers, but I recently took a look at the Jonsbo D31 and I loved it. It fit everything that it said it did. It fit a 4080 Super, it fit an NHD15 without the front fan, but still fit a NHD15, and it even fit a 360 millimeter radiator. Currently, that is how I have it configured. So when it came time to spec out my new editing system, I knew that I wanted to make it smaller than a normal editing system. And I knew that I wanted to make it match the existing gaming PC. So I only had one option, the Jonsbo D41, the ATX variant of that case. And I gotta say, if everything goes exactly the same as it did before, well, this is gonna do really well. So let's get into this box, take a look at it, check its quality, and see, does moving to ATX change anything? Or is this really the ideal compact ATX case? Hello and welcome, my name is Wolfie, you're watching GreaterThanPie, and today we're taking a look at the Jonsbo D41. Now, for those of you who don't know who Jonsbo is, they're a relatively new player in the American market, but they've been in the Chinese market for a very long time when it comes to computer cases. If I'm not mistaken, they're actually an OEM for a lot of case manufacturers, so this is really just their designs, and you'll actually see a lot of the internal structures that they come up with in their cases showing up in other cases. So the D41 though is kind of interesting because it took what was the D31 and just kind of made it a little bit taller so that it would fit an ATX motherboard. I'll be able to actually test today despite me not having the rest of the parts ready. Do something like this, I think. Well, that didn't work. Come on. May have to push the back. Okay, wait, I actually got some movement. There we go. So, very thick foam. It did just break on me, so yeah. It's gonna be staticky too, watch. Oh yeah, they added a little bit of extra height on the feet. That was something I did to my D41 actually. So, let's look right here. We got a magnetic filter on the bottom, and that is all she is. Very, very small ATX case. Look at that. I think this angle is probably the easiest to see. It's a compact ATX case, far right. So top panel is completely made of mesh and comes off like so. Top is at a 360 millimeter or two 140s. That dimension actually didn't change at all. This front panel can actually be popped off into two different pieces, and that's because there's an optional screen that you can put there, or if you have any of the other screens from them, you can put them on there. And that cable hole right there is to route it in. I went with the all mesh variant because the mesh actually looks really, really nice, and I found that the screen wasn't really all that useful. You can actually see over here where we have the ability to raise and lower the PSU mount ever so slightly. So that can be done with removing those two screws, and you've got positions higher and lower depending on what you need to accommodate. Now, one thing about these cases is they don't really have that much cable management room. You can see that they got this like channel right here, and this space right here underneath what is like the pseudo PSU shroud. Other than that, they really just don't have that much room. We do have two 2.25 hard drive spots, or if you want to, those could be RGB controllers. And then of course, the last panel that we can remove easily is gonna be the tempered glass. It does have like a little retention thing so that it doesn't just drop. And then the frame itself is protected on the corners ever so slightly, but not really that much. I don't know if it would survive a Jay's 2 cents drop test. Now that we're in here, we can kind of take a look to see if there's any real big differences. So one of the reasons that this case was so feature packed before was because the space for the GPU is pretty much unimpeded if you raise up this PSU mount. Though there is a hard drive cage now that has been added and is one of the newer features of this case that I was actually kind of excited for. You could add a single hard drive to the D41, but given the fact that this is supposed to be a compact case, having just 2 drives makes sense. I do see some other differences that are a little subtle, but I do like them. The frame, I didn't realize it was that. The frame itself is actually built around where the motherboard is, which is kind of nice. It looks like you could still put a full ATX system and a set of 120s on the bottom. That's their shroud. There you can see our PSU mount fits full ATX PSUs. So you're not even gonna have to compromise there. And then here's our hard drive sled, which is probably easier to build outside of the system. Oh, it looks like you could also put an additional 2.5 on the top too. Oh, how nice is that? So technically you can put 3 2.5 inch and 3 3/4. I don't remember how big those original hard drives are. And it looks like this secures entirely from the bottom. So you'll notice that most of the screws you're gonna need are actually exactly where they are. There is a small bag of screws over here, which will have drive mounts. It will have the motherboard screws. Standoffs are already installed for ATX. Just like I thought, probably the easiest way to mount your hard drives is gonna be to take this out, put your drives in, then put it into place. That would make the most sense to me. A little bit different than the normal drive cage, but then you'd be able to access both sides easily. But removing that does reveal that you got a 120mm fan spot right up here and one back here. What I did find in the original, the D31, was that the fan mounts weren't fully usable in all configurations, but it was completely okay because the smaller layout meant that I could use the GPU to pull in air and actually yielded pretty good results. So yeah, if we remove these, which are the PSU shroud, we can then take out that. And with that out, that's how you would install your PSU. Again, pretty quality material from what it was last time too. None of it feels particularly thin. I will say that the perforations look a little bit better on the D41 than they did the 31. There might just be some improvements on their manufacturing process. We have our front panel connectors, which we've got sort of almost universal. It's just a tiny little thing. Front USB-C, USB 3.0, and audio jack, which yes, this does have a USB-C audio combo jack and a single, it's a full-size connector, and a single USB-A port. Let's take off our 2 finger tight, nice. So our 2 little sleds that we can put for SSDs or various little componentry. We have our pre-run power cable because this does use the mount on the inside, so you're gonna have to run a lead. And then right here is our accessories bag, which really doesn't come with much, but it has some twist ties, it's got some drive mount stuff, it's got motherboard standoffs, and some stuff to install your PSU. All of that is labeled nice. It's all labeled on these printed bags, which actually looks pretty good.
All right, so let's test it with some full-size parts. I got a full-size ATX PSU, I got a full-size ATX motherboard, and I've got a chunky GPU. This is the 7900 XTX. This is going in the build, and so is this PSU. So we already have 2 of the bigger components that we can get placed and just see how it's all gonna come together. And honestly, this was a very, very easy process in this case. Removing the PSU shroud and installing the PSU is very, very straightforward. There's not a lot of room for these cables to bend into the back, and there's not a lot of room to hide these cables. So if I had any critiques for Jonsbo, I would say maybe adding a couple more millimeters to the back cable management area would be appreciated. Of course, if you did not have the hard drive sleds, which I'm going to be using, it wouldn't be that big of a problem. The ATX motherboard fits pretty much edge to edge. I love the look of an ATX motherboard that's actually completely encased in the case itself here, and it works. All the standoffs were in the right spot. It was really easy to install, and the cutout on the back is actually bigger than it is in some cases. I can see myself, if I have to actually replace the cooler mount, being able to do so quite easily. The GPU fits perfectly just past the hard drive sleds, just under the PSU. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it does fit, and it fits nicely, actually.
So overall, I really do like this case. And I did mention that I wanted to talk a little bit about the procurement process for this case. So generally speaking, you can buy it stateside for around $100. And that seems to be a good price for it, like 100, 110. On AliExpress, you can find it for less sometimes, but then by the time you're done paying the import fees and all that stuff, it ends up being a slightly worse deal. So yeah, it does appear that places like Amazon and Newegg are stocking them regularly in their warehouse. So you should be able to get them stateside. Pretty decent deal. The D31 does seem to be more in stock than the D41. And that has everything to do with probably the fact that the D41 is a very unique case in the sense that it is a compact MATX style case, which is not all that common. It's getting more common. Actually, if you saw CES this year, you would have seen a lot of that style of case. I've been pretty impressed with my Jonsbo cases and look forward to the full build in here. I'm gonna try to cable manage this together just to make it look clean for now and to train the cables, because this is gonna be the same power supply being used in the official build. But yeah, I'm excited for this. So what do you guys think about it? Do you like these Jonsbo cases? Do you wanna see some other cases from some other lesser known case manufacturers? But that is where I'm ending it today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Wolfie, out.